Welcome to The Hidden Load for the educators and leaders in medicine who hold everyone up. We will tackle the hard topics and help you conquer your chaos and get to calm, all by starting to acknowledge and remove that hidden load. This podcast is a space for us to name the things that are common but not normal. Each week, we'll look at the invisible weight you're carrying and explore practical coaching-based tools to help you find more calm, better boundaries, and a sense of purpose that doesn't require you to run on empty. I'm so glad that you've carved time out for yourself today. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to The Hidden Load. Today, we are exploring a specific intersection that many of our listeners live in, the space between being a leader in medicine and a leader in the home. If you are a program director, a section chief, a senior attending, or a community attending, you're used to being the expert amongst your team. You're the one that people go to for answers. But what happens when that expert identity also follows you home, but clashes with the messy, unpredictable reality of parenting? I am your host, Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I'm a family physician, an educator, and a career and life coach. And today, I am joined by Dr. Juhi Raizada. Juhi is a pediatrician and a parent coach who helps high-achieving moms navigate the invisible labor of parenting. Juhi, you've noted that for women in leadership, the load isn't just about tasks. It's about the pressure to stay composed in every room that we enter. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful podcast. I'm excited for this conversation because we all are leaders, whether we wear that badge or we don't. I know that every mom is a CEO of her home. And then as busy working, physician moms, a lot of us sometimes find ourselves in a little bit of a lonely place. And that's where that hidden load comes in. And we're just kind of navigating it. But sometimes it's good to hear from other women physicians the perspective that they have on this as well.
Absolutely. I think that that's so true. That aspect of feeling like you're in a lonely place can feel so real to so many people. I feel like we see other people and think that they have it all, and reminding each other that it's not easy, that it takes work. It takes a lot of energy and intentionality to keep moving. Tell me a little bit about how the hidden load showed up for you and made you want to do the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you. So with me, it showed up in little bits and it was adding up. I didn't know that it was kind of running in the background and it was wearing me out. I, on the outside, was a pediatrician who was very confident. I've got it all. And on the inside, I was overwhelmed. I was finding myself yelling at my kids and then feeling guilty about it. I was finding myself trying to do the best, but then still feeling like I was failing somewhere. And it just kind of just broke me when one day I was yelling at my teenager and, I didn't know what was happening. I did not want to do it. And that's when I went on this journey because there was going to be a better way. I was going to find it. And when I learned the tools, that's when I started on this journey of self-awareness. And that I think is the step one for recognizing that we are in fact carrying a backpack of, a lot of our responsibilities, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's social. All of these are added onto that backpack that we're carrying. And if we can just pause for a moment and just take stock of what we're carrying, that itself can help just transform our relationships.
Absolutely. I think that so many of us can relate to that feeling of watching yourself do something and wondering where it came from, sort of watching this behavior that doesn't feel like you, that you're shocked by, and having that realization that something potentially can change or hopefully can change. So many of us who are in healthcare, we build our identity on competence. It's something that we really learn that we have to do. We learn that we have to manage a crisis and we have to stay calm under pressure. We learn that we have to teach other people how to do that as well because we have to show that brave face to our patients and lead the team, whether we have that title or not. And in some of our conversations, you've mentioned that this is the composed leader persona, but that persona that we bring together at work can actually become a heavy burden at home. Can you talk to me a little bit about how this shows up for the woman who is supposed to be the calm one at the hospital all day and then comes home and needs to take it off or doesn't know how to take it off?
Yeah, that is such a good question and so relevant for our, high achieving women physician groups that, we're all day and throughout our training, it's very intense. We're, not only leading like our teams, residents, handling the colleagues and things like that, but we're also absorbing so many emotions of so many patients, whether it's families or complaints or just the pressure of like the administration sometimes, and all of that. We are then, after our shift is done, we're getting in our car, the commute, we're kind of processing all of that, and by the time we get home, the second shift starts. And so it's going from the 9 to 5 to 5 to 9. It's a continuous work. It's like you're on call 24/7 with no breaks. And so if you can imagine, being on call just in the hospital 24/7, 7 days a week, nonstop, what's that going to do to, our nervous system, our health, our physical, emotional health? And that's kind of what happens to a lot of us when we are finishing our first shift, going into the second, and not recognizing that break in between and not kind of taking it in, then it comes out on our family members. Because then comes a question of dinner and activities and sports. And, obviously, as high achieving parents, we want to give the same kind of environment to our kids. And then we're putting a lot of pressure in turn on ourselves sometimes. So I find that, just kind of taking stock of all the activities and all the evening events that are have to happen helps offload some of it and maybe delegate some of it, and that helps your nervous system stay more regulated.
It's so true. I have so many memories of honestly even actually being on a 24-hour shift. I used to deliver babies frequently, and so being on a 24-hour shift and managing all that was the hospital between the newborns, the laboring moms, and then coming home and having a sick child or having someone that was upset about something that happened at school. It really did feel like nonstop, and there was not that ability to slow down and breathe and separate some of those pieces. I originally did not learn how to do that. That wasn't modeled very well for me when I was in training and a young attending. So, for someone who is focused on maintaining control, because we know that control in medicine, it really is a virtue. You're praised for being the one that can maintain control in emergency. You're praised for getting it all done and not having a strong reaction. We want to make sure that there's control in the curriculum or the safety protocols and the clinical outcome. How do we talk about losing some of our grip on that control if that's what we need to do in order to lighten the load at home?
Yeah, so it's really important that we do have to separate our work from our home, in a sense that when we go and practice medicine, yes, we want to take care of our patients and we want to diagnose and fix, quote unquote, the problem, right? But when we are stepping into our family life or our personal life, relationships, I think the key is to lead from connection versus control. I think the key is to lead from connection versus correction. And that piece comes from empathy and active listening. So sometimes, when we're in our office or in the hospital, yes, we're very good listeners. We're very attentive to what we need to tend to, and we fix, we diagnose, and we move on to the next. But at home, these are the people that we are actually, raising. These are little people that that are going to turn into adults. So it helps to kind of think about our values and the things that we are trying to inculcate in our next generation. And if we pause and we lead with connection, it actually decreases burnout and it improves and transforms our relationships.
So tell me a little bit about how you recommend we lead with connection at home.
So I recommend and I teach my clients the calm parent method. And what that involves is it's a three-part framework, which is really easy to do. And you can catch yourself doing that, repeatedly, number of times a day. And initially, it may seem like it's a chore, but it just becomes part of our nervous system as we practice it more. And the three components are really simple. The first one is pause. So I usually will start with a pause if I feel like my temperature of my body is rising. I'm feeling like tightness in my shoulders. I am feeling tightness in my jaw. I catch myself and I pause. When I pause, it could be a deep breath, or it could just be closing my eyes for a few seconds. And that helps me just not yell, at least at that moment. And then, secondly, I name the feeling. And naming the feeling, it's not always that you're yelling for the same thing or you're getting upset at the same thing. It could be you're frustrated, you're sad, you're disgusted, you're disappointed, you're upset. So there's all these emotions that we all kind of sometimes put in one bucket, but they're all different in their own way. And so if we name it, we can tame it. And so it helps to name the emotion after we pause. And we're still not finding ourselves, doing any sort of reaction or anything to our kids or our um, in any relationship. From there, I recommend that we shift. And the shift is, let's take a minute and we'll talk about this in a minute. Or let me think about this response and come back to you. And that perspective gives the space and grace in the relationship without hurting and coming in from a place of reactivity. Because a lot of times when we are, in our home, we're trying to obviously do our best. Everyone's trying to do their best, but the best may not be perceived as a constructive thought or a constructive criticism. And so it's important to lead with empathy. And this method helps lead with empathy and avoid the reactionary responses in homes.
I think what you just said is so important. And I think works not only with our children, it works in so many spaces. It's really about having awareness of what we're feeling. It's about the taking the moment to breathe through it. I think 30 seconds in just about any situation can make a
Yes.
huge difference in how reactive you really to be intentional about your response. That reactivity that you were talking about a moment ago, I have found that whenever I respond in a reactive manner, whether it's with my family, whether it's with my peers or my team members, it never goes as well as I want it to. And so when you can shift that, it's absolutely Absolutely amazing. When you use this framework for your clients or when you've used this for yourself, what sort of responses are they finding? How does this make them feel when they use it?
Yeah, some of my clients have come back that this is like the most life-changing, simple technique that they've ever used in their parenting. One of the moms, she's a very busy working professional mom of four girls. And she was having a hard time connecting with the girls as they were turning into teenagers. And she came back to me and she was just like, I've used this and now my girls are using it too. And it's
Even
just,
better.
yeah. And the whole home has turned into so calm and peaceful. Whereas before it was just chaos and, it was just a lot of unrest in the relationships. And they've just blossomed into positive relationships now. So I think that that really speaks a lot to, how this powerful this could be because a lot of times, we're reading a lot of books and we're trying to find solutions that are like right in front of us sometimes.
And I don't think we always talk about it this way, but I think that happiness at home and sustainability at work are so interrelated. When you're really unhappy at work, it's hard to be happy at home. When you're very stressed at home, that also carries over to you in work. And it impacts how others can sometimes run into us or see us. So how do you go from that fix it mindset? You just gave us this framework, but you have to be open to that framework, right? How do you go from shifting it to that fix it like a clinical workflow to not trying to fix your kids?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question because again, a lot of us like women physicians, we're just all about, we're used to that kind of fixing mindset. And I'm definitely guilty of that because, I learned this along the way while raising two kids and I'm in the season of now with two teenagers. And I think it comes with taking stock of what is important to me and the values that I'm trying to teach the next generation. And it comes with an open mindedness of accepting some of the things that are working as a collaboration versus, because I said so mindset. And that I think is definitely a learning curve and it could take some time. But once you get that, the collaboration piece comes in, and then you're all on the same team. It's not one versus the other in your home. You're all on the same team. And just think about, how you play together when you're on one team versus you're on the opposite team. So I'll give you a really simple example of this is, the one of my teens, the rooms was not clean. And I went in and I was just like, well, I hope that you can clean your room by tomorrow. And it was just like, it went on and on. I just, it was the next day and it continued for 2 or 3 days. And I was just like, this is not working. And now we are, as soon as like seeing each other, it's all about the room again. And I don't want that relationship to be built on this kind of foundation.
Mhm.
So I sat her down and I was like, look, the room is not clean. What should we do about it? And that instantly took the problem separate from her. So now we have a problem, but the child is not the problem. The room is the problem, not the child. And so when we're sitting on the same side of the table and looking at the same problem, it is such a different framework from looking at the problem from two opposite ends. And that shifts everything in the home as we practice it in baby steps. And then that becomes part of your home. And then everyone starts thinking in the same direction.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really like to talk about is how do we use some of these techniques in a way that models for either our learners or our team members? I think that this is really important because one of the hidden curriculums in medicine is
that we watch our mentors do things and think that that's how it's supposed to do. We assume that they have it all together, whether they do or they don't. And so, for those who are listening that are leaders, that are mentors, why is it important for them to be able to do this to show those that they are mentoring? How can they share this information with them too, so that their learners or their teammates can see that there is this way where they can enjoy their home life in addition to their careers?
Yeah, I remember the residency days where I used to feel like the attendings and program director and all of the senior residents have it all together, and I didn't as a first year intern. So this is such an important point for the young physicians that we are modeling, that we are, leading the way for. And I think it's really important to remember that we're all humans, that we're all trying to do better than yesterday. We're all trying to be 1% better than yesterday. It's important to remember that mistakes are going to happen because to err is human. But the more important piece is repair. And if we can all just kind of be okay with doing the repair work, because a lot of times, whether we are, as a mom or as a colleague, sometimes mistakes happen, but we don't stress the importance of repair. Our kids, for example, they don't expect us to not make mistakes. They know mistakes are going to happen. And it's important to show them the vulnerability, because what we're showing the young interns, residents, kids is what they are absorbing. If they don't see the mistakes, they're going to think perfection is the way to do it. But that's a myth. Perfection is a myth. And the reality is progress is key to any kind of success.
I've been a program director for a while. I have found over the years, recently, since when my program is open about being family friendly, and also the ACGME changed its leave policy, making it a little bit easier and sustainable for residents to have children during their training, that this is just a topic that I have found come up more often. It has become a more natural conversation of, wow, how are you managing this when you go home? Especially, I know you mentioned teenagers, but I'm remembering those toddler days when
Yeah.
my children were so hard. And I really did feel like I was on call 24/7, even on the days that I wasn't. And I just really hope that the educators and leaders are hearing the part that when our residents or students or team members watch us power through, when they watch us hold our own exhaustion and carry that load in silence without thinking about what other tools can we do to feel better, then we're teaching our learners, our teammates, that that is what professionalism looks like. And it absolutely doesn't have to. It doesn't have to look that way, and that asking for support really can be an important aspect of this. Do you think that there's ways that people can model asking for help in a situation like this or looking for support?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger person is going to be open to receiving help. When I look back in retrospect, I feel like this training and the medical school, all of that, it makes you very resilient and very, very strong, because there's hours upon hours of work. And when you were a resident, I don't know how many hours you were supposed to do on call, but when I was a resident, I was doing 30-hour straight calls overnight. And I also had my first baby during residency. So I, have slept on couches during pregnancy and things like that while being on call. So, it kind of does make you more, lack of a better word, like more stoic and a little bit more resilient. And you feel like you can do it all and you've got it all. And then it's really hard for us to receive help. So I think the way to model this would be to be open to receiving help And it's okay. It doesn't make me a small person if I'm getting help. It doesn't make me weak if I'm receiving help. It makes me human. It makes me, just like the other person. And so sometimes we forget that as a physician, women physicians in this field.
And you did mention perfectionism earlier. We
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, it's important to soften our own expectations of
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism, because when we're able to do that, then we can show others that they don't have to have perfectionism. And that really does help us create a more sustainable culture, especially for that next generation of doctors, because I really do hope we have that. So it's all women physician, but especially those who are leaders or educators often thrive themselves on being over functioners. We try really hard to anticipate needs before they're voiced. That makes us great chiefs. It makes us great medical directors. Um, Honestly, it makes us good parents sometimes too, because we're doing the same things for our families, but it also leads to extremely exhausted parents. So, what's a practical shift that someone who prides themselves on overfunctioning can make tonight? Like one little thing that can help them stop carrying the responsibility for how everyone around them feels.
I think it starts with asking good questions because sometimes we assume, and I find that whenever we assume, we're not really understanding the needs of the other person, whether it's a younger physician or our kids. And so I found that if I ask better questions, I get answers, and that sometimes helps me even lighten my load of, which direction I'm supposed to go. Like maybe I'm thinking that everyone wants, just a very simple example, like everyone wants home cooked dinner, but maybe everyone doesn't want that, or maybe everyone's okay with leftovers. And that lightens my load and it just takes so much off of my plate. So I think that has helped me personally and my clients as they are asking better questions. They're getting, more and more insight into which direction to lead with.
So, there's obviously things that we can all do as individuals to make our lives a bit more intentional, a bit more sustainable, a bit more calm. But that doesn't ignore the responsibilities of the system. What can we be advocating for in the system to help support our, particularly moms in medicine who are feeling this overwhelm? How can we help?
Yeah, I think moms in medicine, definitely we are a special group of moms who trying to do it all. The thing that I think the system wide is something that we can change is somehow if we can incorporate a little bit more flexibility in our schedules, a little bit more acceptability of if we're raising a child, they can get sick and our caregiver may call out. It's not something that is should be unheard of, just like other professions. I see my non-physician friends with little kids much less stressed than me because I am feeling guilty of calling myself out because I have a sick child. I have a duty for my patients and my families that I consider my families as my patients too. But I also have a, a duty for my own child at home who's sick and has a fever. And so I strive every day to kind of bridge that gap and figure out what can we do better to help the women physicians feel a little bit lesser loaded with this guilt of constant battle of should I go to work when my child is sick or should I stay home?
It's not just when they're sick. It's also when their school tells you they have a performance and it's only 3 weeks before the performance, like every single time that my children have had one. Or when they get accepted for something. My daughter recently was accepted for a science fair, and arranging to get her there caused stress in our household. We're thrilled that she's doing it, but
Yeah.
those things where you want to support your family can be challenging, and thinking about the work balance if there's not flexibility. I'm very fortunate to have flexibility, so we were able to manage, but I know that some of my colleagues would not have that feeling of flexibility. I think it bears saying that one thing that we could do is make that flexibility not just for the moms, but for all parents. Because I think that when everybody experiences that flexibility, then it doesn't feel like, oh, just that group of people need something and it's better for all of us. With that in mind, is there anything else that you want to make sure that our audience hears today?
Yes, if I'm talking to the leaders and the physicians and the leadership, modeling the young physicians that are up and coming are so hardworking. We have such amazing young talent in this country, is that we want to just soften our edges a little bit, just smile and be human and have the empathy. If we lead with empathy and active listening, I think every relationship can transform and this world will be a better place.
Absolutely. Such good words to end with. Juhi, thank you so much for helping us bridge the gap between our professional presence and our personal calm or our personal peace. I really appreciate you being here. If listeners would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yes. So they can follow me at Dr. Juhi, that's DoctorJuhi on Instagram. And if they DM me the word load, I have a special surprise for them. So just DM me the word load, LOAD, and I'll send you my free guide on invisible load that most of the women physicians are dealing with today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will make sure that we link that in the show notes in case you were driving and unable to write that down at this moment. Dr. Juhi, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening today. Don't forget that you can get free continuing education or CME credit by listening to this by going to the Learn at Pinnacle app. And that will also be linked in the show notes as well. And I look forward to seeing you next time on The Hidden Load.
Thank you for listening to The Hidden Load. If today's conversation spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a colleague who might need to hear it too. It's one of the simplest ways we can start shifting the culture of medicine together. And remember, your time spent reflecting here matters. You can earn free CME or CE credits for listening to today's episode through the Pinnacle app. You'll find that link in the show notes. If you are looking for one-on-one coaching support or want to dive deeper into the resources we discussed today, let's connect. You can find information on how to reach me in the show notes. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And leave me a rating so that others can find me too. And take care of yourself because you deserve to be held up too. And I'll see you next time.